There's a version of you the world sees, and then there's the version of you that quietly watches from behind your own eyes. One is a performance. The other is the truth you've forgotten how to access. But most people live their entire lives thinking the mask is the person, not realizing that the self they present to the world was never the self they were meant to become. We all wear a persona, a word Carl Jung used to describe the psychological mask we construct to survive. It's the smile you force in uncomfortable situations, the opinions you share so you won't seem strange, the way you adjust your personality depending on who's in front of you. It's not fake, it's adaptive. It's how you learn to belong. But somewhere along the way, the persona stops being a tool and becomes a prison. Because the more you adjust yourself, shape yourself, bend yourself to meet expectations, the further you drift from the quiet voice inside that says, "This isn't me." And Jung believed that this internal split between who you are and who you pretend to be is the root of psychological suffering. Think about it. Every time you silence your real thoughts, every time you swallow your truth because you're afraid it won't be accepted, every time you trade authenticity for approval, you reinforce the idea that your true self is unsafe, that you must hide it, protect it, keep it out of sight. Eventually, the persona takes over. You wake up one day and realize you don't know what you truly feel, or want, or believe. You only know what keeps the peace. But here's the painful truth. A life built on performing may look put together on the outside, but on the inside, it collapses. Jung called the lost inner self the shadow, not because it's dark or bad, but because it's hidden. It's the abandoned parts of you, the honest parts, the alive parts, the parts you buried to be accepted. And as long as that shadow remains unacknowledged, a strange emptiness follows you. A quiet sense of living someone else's script. The first step to discovering the real you isn't transformation. It isn't becoming something new. It's remembering what you buried. It's peeling back the layers of performance and asking softly, if I didn't have to please anyone, who would I be? This chapter begins the journey inward, away from the persona you constructed and toward the self you abandoned. Because beneath the mask, you're still there, waiting. We all want to be seen, but before that, we want to be safe. And that's where the persona begins. Carl Jung described the persona as the mask you show to the world, the version of you that wins approval, avoids conflict, fits in, and survives socially. It is not fake, it's just incomplete. It's the version of you edited for public consumption. But here's the problem. Most people don't realize how deeply they've fused with their persona. They start believing the mask is their identity, and that disconnect is where a quiet type of suffering begins. From childhood, you're taught who you should be. You learn quickly which parts of you bring praise, and which parts bring punishment, guilt, or silence. Maybe you learn to act confident even when you were scared, to be polite even when you were angry, to seem strong even when you were hurting, or to be the easy one, the one who doesn't upset anyone, doesn't make too much noise, doesn't express too many needs. And over time, those small compromises become a personality, not because you chose it, but because the world trained you into it. Jung believed that the persona is useful, necessary even. It helps us function. It helps us communicate. It helps us move through society without feeling exposed or overwhelmed. But the danger is when your persona becomes so polished that you start hiding even from yourself. You tell people, I'm fine, even though a piece of you feels invisible. You play the role everyone expects, but secretly feel disconnected from your own emotions. You try to maintain an image, the responsible one, the strong one, the smart one, the calm one, and eventually the performance becomes exhausting. Because the persona can smile, while the real you quietly suffocates underneath. Sometimes the world doesn't reject the real you, because the world never even sees it. You've protected it so deeply, buried it so carefully, that it stops coming to the surface at all. And then you wonder, why don't people understand me? Why do I feel unknown? Why do I feel disconnected from my own life? It's because a mask cannot be loved. only admired, only maintained, never truly understood. Jung taught that the first step toward finding the real you is noticing the distance between who you are and who you pretend to be. Not judging it, not ripping the mask off, just noticing. Because awareness is the beginning of freedom. When you start to see the persona, you also start to sense something behind it. A softer voice, a deeper layer, a part of you that has been waiting, quietly, patiently, to be acknowledged. That is the beginning of discovering the true self. There's a question Carl Jung asked directly and indirectly in much of his work. Who are you when no one is watching? Because in everyday life, most of us don't show up as our real selves. We show up as our persona, the mask we learned to wear so we could serve in, fit in, or be accepted. And what's wild is, most people don't even realize they're wearing one. The persona, the version of you built for the world. From childhood, you start building a social mask. Maybe you became the responsible one, the quiet one, the funny one, the strong one, or the easy one. But you didn't choose these roles. You learned them. You shaped yourself based on what others responded to, what they rewarded, and what they punished. So you learned, if I'm quiet, no one gets upset. If I'm agreeable, people like me. If I take care of everyone, they won't leave. If I hide my emotions, I won't get hurt. If I'm perfect, I won't be judged. This becomes your persona, the psychology of performance, the edited version of yourself, the package you present to the world. But here's the catch. The persona keeps you comfortable, but it also keeps you disconnected from your true self, the shunt of wearing a mask too long. The more you live as your persona, the more you quietly abandon the person underneath it. And slowly you begin to feel out of place, even around people you know. Drained by conversations you pretend to enjoy, uncomfortably self-aware in social situations, unsure whether people like you or the version you perform, unable to express what you want because you never practiced wanting. This is why so many people feel like strangers in their own lives. Not because they don't know who they are, but because they've spent years only showing who they aren't. What you hide becomes your shadow. Every time you suppress a part of yourself, it doesn't disappear. It becomes part of what Jung called the shadow, the hidden, unexpressed, sometimes unwanted parts of your identity. Maybe you hide your anger. Maybe you hide your sensitivity. Maybe you hide your ambition, your creativity, your needs, or your boundaries. The persona says, this part of you is not acceptable. The shadow says, I'm still here. And the real you, the authentic you, is caught in between. The real you lives beneath the persona. So if you're watching this and you feel confused about who you are, if you feel like you've been performing for most of your life, if you feel like people don't really know you, it's not because you're lost. It's because you're covered. Covered by expectations, covered by habits, covered by the role you learned to play. And discovering your true self isn't about adding anything new. It's about peeling away the layers of what was never you to begin with. There's a moment in life when you realize you're not just being yourself, you're performing a version of yourself, one that the world taught you to play. Carl Jung called this mask the persona, the social self, the part of you that knows how to be polite, how to fit in, how to be acceptable. And here's the unsettling truth. Most people live their entire lives inside that mask, never meeting the person behind it. Let's talk about how that happens. When you were young, you learned quickly what parts of you were welcomed and what parts made people uncomfortable. Maybe you learned that being quiet was strange. Maybe being emotional was too much. Maybe being curious made you weird, or being sensitive made you dramatic. So without realizing it, you began to adjust. You softened certain traits, you hid others, and eventually, you crafted a version of yourself that others approved of. This is the persona, and it's not a bad thing. It helps us function in society, but the problem begins when the persona becomes the only self you know. You start saying yes when you mean no. You smile when you want to cringe. You stay silent when something hurts. You play roles. The responsible one, the quiet one, the funny one, the strong one, because that's who people expect you to be. But inside, you feel a quiet pressure. a tension between the life you're living and the life that actually feels real. That tension is the voice of your rejected self trying to come back home. Jung believed that the journey to the real you begins the moment you notice this conflict. The moment you ask yourself, who am I when no one is watching? Who am I when I stop trying to impress, perform, or protect myself? Who would I be if I stopped being afraid of being misunderstood? These questions are uncomfortable because they peel away layers you've carried for years, but they also open the door to something incredibly powerful: authenticity. Not the kind you post online, not the kind you force or declare, but the quiet inner realization that you are allowed to be the person you actually are. And here's the paradox. The more you cling to your persona, the more lost you feel, because you can't truly feel alive while hiding from yourself. But the moment you loosen your grip, even just a little, you begin to sense something underneath: a softness, a truth, a version of you that doesn't need permission to exist. That is the beginning of finding the real you. There comes a moment on this journey, a quiet, almost invisible moment, where something shifts. You stop searching for the real you as if it's a missing object. You stop chasing an identity that feels finished, polished, certain. And instead, you begin listening. Listening to the small pulls inside you, the subtle preferences, the inner reactions, the quiet truths you've spent years overriding just to fit in. This is where Jung's idea of the self finally becomes clear. Not as a personality you choose, not as a brand you build, but as a process that unfolds. A becoming, a growing, a returning. The real you isn't discovered in a single moment of clarity. It emerges slowly, as you peel away everything that was never truly yours. The expectations you inherited, the roles you performed, the beliefs you absorbed before you could question them, the fears you accepted as truth because someone else handed them to you. To become yourself, Jung believed, you must walk toward what feels authentic and away from what feels performed. And that takes courage, because authenticity requires loss. Losing the approval of some people, losing the identities that kept you safe, losing the illusion that you must always be what others expect. But on the other side of that loss, there is alignment. The real you is not the version that tries the hardest. It's not the most productive, most pleasing, or most impressive version. It's the version that feels at peace inside your own skin. The version that speaks even when your voice shakes. The version that stops apologizing for existing. The version that follows curiosity instead of fear. The version that says, I'm allowed to be who I am, even if I'm still figuring it out. And maybe that's the greatest truth of all. The real you isn't a final answer. It's a direction, a movement toward wholeness, a willingness to meet every part of yourself. The light, the shadow, the past, the potential, and say, you belong here. This is individuation, not perfection, not certainty, not becoming someone new, but finally becoming someone honest, someone whole, someone you. And as you walk forward, you may realize something Jung always hinted at. You are not a puzzle to solve. You are a soul unfolding. The real you isn't hiding, it's waiting. And every step you take inward brings you closer to home.